Hello and welcome to Voice of Liberty. Tonight, we're going to talk about delaying the election. And we're going to talk about Trump's tweets talking about delaying the election. And the reason we have to talk about this, and the reason there's no video intro for this one, is because there's really nothing that I could put up besides the American flag burning to describe in video form what the President of the United States talking about delaying the election is. See, from a surface look at the tweet, and just kind of without putting much thought behind it, Donald Trump's tweet, which he says, with universal mail-in voting, not absentee voting, which is good, he has that in parentheses, 2020 will be the most inaccurate and fraudulent election in history. It will be a great embarrassment to the USA. Delay the election until people can properly, securely, and safely vote. There's a problem with this, and I should state that he put 3 question marks at the end of this tweet. And from a surface, you would want to attack this tweet. The inaccurate part, you would want to attack. The fraudulent part, you would want to attack because, in theory, 2016's election was the most fraudulent election in history. Some people might want to attack him not being able to discern how universal mail-in voting and absentee voting are practically the same. Some might want to attack the fact that the embarrassment to the United States of America is Donald Trump himself. But the part we really have to talk about here is delaying the election. Now, let's talk about what it takes to delay an election. Let's talk about what would be required to delay the election, and let's also talk about what happens if he delays it too far for a minute here. So first off, the President of the United States has absolutely zero power to delay the election. The President of the United States has no ability at all to affect the date set for the United States general election in 2020. Even if he declared martial law, even if he made power absolute within his office, he would have absolutely no power to affect the date of the election. Anything short of a military coup where he suspends the Constitution and takes complete and total control of the United States government, anything short of that would prevent him or would keep him from being able to affect the date of the election. So Donald Trump talking about delaying the election is really more of a call to those in Senate and the House to discuss it. That's at the surface level what delaying the election is. It's him calling to his friends in the Senate, his friends in the House, to get the ball rolling, to get the discussion going. Let's talk about delaying this election. The ironic part is he wants to delay it due to safety. And the thing is, this virus has never been he's never had a fear for safety with it. He has no fear for sending children back to school, but suddenly he fears that this virus is going to affect the safety of those who could vote. So he wants to get the discussion going in Congress. Now, congressional Republicans have pretty much sat back and said, no, this is not happening. We can't do it. But they haven't said it in like that definitive no. They've more said it in like a, yeah, it's probably not a good idea, and shied away from the topic. And the problem with that is they're not directly coming out and saying that you cannot do this, Mr. President. They're not directly coming out and saying, no, we're not delaying the election. They're not coming out and saying that you should have never said that. Take that back. Do not talk about it. They're just kind of skating around the topic. And the reason is because there's a narrative being built. And here's the thing that people might have missed. Donald Trump is not saying this in order to actually delay the election. Because Donald Trump recognizes that if he delays the election for any extended period of time, on January 20th of 2021 at noon, he is no longer president. Vice President Pence is no longer the vice president. And the presidential line of succession steps in and it takes over. You will have an appointed acting president, more than likely Nancy Pelosi, if she is appointed by the governor of California to retain her position. See, this is what happens if you talk about delaying the election. If it gets to that definitive point in time where the changes in the seats happen, people begin to be appointed or put in as acting members in the position. So Donald Trump recognizes this. I've said it multiple times, he's stupid, but he's not that stupid. He recognizes that if he delays too far, January 20th, 2021 could come, and that clock could hit noon, and he is no longer president. He is back to being a private citizen. What he's really trying to do is he's trying to get his base talking. And this is where you need to be careful. Okay? I've called Trump a fascist. I have called Trump an authoritarian. I have called Trump totalitarian. I have said that Trump worships at the feet of actual totalitarians and authoritarians. Trump is essentially attempting to learn from them, to study them. See, these people didn't rise to fascist power or authoritarian power or totalitarian power just because they said, hey, guess what? I'm the absolute ruler. What they did is they used a crisis, whether it be an actual crisis or a perceived crisis. They used it to delay democratic elections. They used it in order to be able to retain power. And that's what Donald Trump's looking at. He's trying to be like them within a system that prevents him from doing it. What's the end game? What's the end goal? The end game and the end goal is this. The Trump campaign, Donald Trump, Vice President Pence, and his entire administration recognize something. His campaign is trailing in states that he won with a landslide in 2016. States that he had a narrow margin of victory are turning to Biden. Biden, nationally, is excelling past him. It was a 10-point lead. Now it's roughly a 4-point lead. It still matters. See, his campaign, his administration, him, Pence, they all recognize that the way the hand is dealt right now, they're not coming out on top. November 3rd, 2020 will end and will go into wee morning hours of November 4th, more than likely, showing Biden to be the next president of the United States. More than likely, somewhere between midnight and 2 a.m. on November 4th, we will see Biden cross the 270 threshold. And that's what Donald Trump wants to set the narrative for. That's what Donald Trump wants to get people ready for. See, what he wants to prepare people for is this. He's stating that mail-in ballots, universal mail-in ballots, are ripe for corruption. They are ready for fraud. They are ready to be tampered with. Because on November 4th, when he says that he does not accept the results of the election, then the argument begins. See, then his base, his cult, his people will be out there saying, this was a fraudulent election. This election was reaped with controversy. This cannot happen. He did it again in a tweet today. He's setting the mindset. Must know election results on the night of the election, not days, months, or even years later. See, Donald Trump is playing into his base not understanding how electoral politics happen. He is playing into his base not understanding how the Electoral College works. See, Donald Trump, he's sitting there saying that we must know the results of the election on the night of the election. We didn't know Donald Trump was going to be president of the United States until roughly 3 or 4 hours into the day after the election in 2016, when it was really apparent that 270 had been hit. But it gets even more complicated from there, because in December, the College of Electors will meet, and every state will cast its electoral vote. Technically, you don't know who the actual president of the United States is until December. But what Donald Trump is doing, he's playing into his base not understanding how this system works. He's playing into his base not understanding this type of complicated electoral politics. So that way, like I said, on November 4th, he can put out a tweet saying, "This election was a fraud. I do not accept the results of this election. This is not happening here in America. America's a democracy." And then he can try to attempt to stay in power. He can use his base, who will be fired up. They'll be upset. What's coming is a revolution. That's where this gets dangerous. The base is not going to accept the change of power. The base is not going to accept the power change in Washington. The base is not going to accept Donald Trump having to step down from the office of the presidency on January 20th, 2021. And that is where things can get dicey. Because the cult will be distraught. The cult will be upset. And the cult will be looking for a leader. That leader is not necessarily going to be Donald Trump. That leader is going to be a ignited, fiery voice within their group. Someone on the alt-right. Someone who is a loyal supporter of Donald Trump. And that person is going to be the figurehead of what could shape the first 3 to 4 years of the next presidency. This is how things get dangerous. Donald Trump is showing all the signs of being a dictator, the 14 characteristics. We need to watch out. We need to be a voice of liberty, and we need to stand up and ensure that this does not happen. This is a serious moment. Anybody who stays silent about Donald Trump trying to do this and trying to set this narrative and this conversation forward is not a patriot. They're not loving of America. They don't even care about America. The only person they care about is Donald Trump. And Trump doesn't even care about America. That's what we need to watch out for, because we need to ensure that he does not have the power and the force behind him to not step down from the office of the presidency. Awaken the voice of liberty.